I'm talking to Sam Ronan, who just ran for the DNC chair. Sam, hi. Thanks for coming back and talking to me again.
How's it going? Hopefully this time we won't have as many technical difficulties.
I'm counting on that. So I'm going to start off with kind of a big question. As you know, since the presidential race, there have been three elections within the Democratic Party for major leadership positions. In each case, the establishment candidate, Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, Tom Perez, has carried the day, despite the very real possibility of losing the progressive base as a result. And in your race for, in your race for DNC chair, correct me if I'm wrong, but you got 0 votes in what essentially was a ranked choice system. And then immediately after that, they doubled down and and voted to begin accepting corporate lobbyist money again. So given given that we know a progressive candidate has to run a grassroots campaign, no matter which party they're in, when you factor in the corruption in the Democratic Party that makes it even more difficult for progressives to win elections, do you still feel that there is a path to victory for progressives in the party?
So, I mean, you're right. That is a big question, and you're putting me on the spot. That's a gotcha question. I'm not going to answer
Sorry.
that. Yes, there is a way forward in the party, progressive-wise. It's slow. We saw that. The Resolution 33 was very clearly an indication that they're not ready to change or admit their faults when they voted against it. And you had Nancy Pelosi's daughter, Christine Pelosi, fighting vehemently against corporate money and influence, and they still stood up 2/3 or more to strike down the resolution. Does that deter me? No, that really doesn't. The problem is grassroots, right? Grassroots is still going to be the fundamental issue. We can't give up. We can't pack our bags. Here's why. The Democratic Party, yes, is corrupt. Yes, it is ingrained with the moneyed elite, and that is a problem. That is absolutely a problem, and nobody's arguing that. The problem is we can't do squat about it because we live in a duopoly. We live in an oligarchy. So you can do one of two things. You can burn it down to the ground and hope that the Republican Party falls with it, or you can work from the outside and try and influence it from the inside. And that's what I intend to do. I want to empower and strengthen the grassroots movements. The thing is, it's plural. There are movements. There are probably hundreds, if not thousands, of these different movements. Each city has its own progressive agenda. That's the problem. We're all working toward the same goal in parallel instead of together. And moving forward, we simply cannot afford to keep doing that. So like you said, there's all these progressive leaders, Bernie Sanders, Tulsi Gabbard, Nina Turner, all these people. And what they are not doing is stepping up to the plate to be a catalyzing agent to coalesce these different organizations together. I'm not saying I'm arrogant enough or have enough hubris to say I am that guy. But until that guy shows up, I'm going to try and walk in their footsteps.
Right, and I realize that it did put you on the spot, but you are kind of sorry. Go on.
I said I only said that to be funny, not because I'm upset.
Oh no, but it certainly did put you on the spot, and it isn't to say that Sam Ronan should do all of this on his own. Obviously, it's a situation where we all need to be involved, but you are kind of a lightning rod right now for that kind of debate. Because you've amassed a following, so where you're going to take that following next, I think, is of intense interest to a lot of people. So you don't think that the best way to reform the Democratic Party would be to leave the Democratic Party so they have a chance to change their ways and win us back?
Well, look at it this way. We've already Demexited. We've already done Demexodus. That we've lost, 14 to 18 million registered Democrats? If they're not aware by now and unwilling to change even so, they're not going to change just because we keep leaving and hemorrhaging. The thing is, power corrupts, absolutely, right? And I disagree with that sentiment because it's weakness who allows themselves to be corrupted by power. Just because you have power doesn't mean you have to be a bad person. You have power right now. You're a journalist. You're interviewing me. You're a reporter. You're growing. Okay. If you get on CNN one day and you're your own analyst or whatever they're called, if you then choose to play the same game everybody else is, then you have been corrupted by power. But if you choose to stay the course and you become on this network and you have your own show and you stay the course, then you have not been corrupted by power. I don't think you're weak. I'm not weak. And who knows? Maybe I don't last the test of time. But as it stands, my spine is pretty sturdy, and I intend to keep it that way. The problem is, in a duopoly, if only one side falls, the other fills the void. If the Democratic Party collapses today or tomorrow, we're screwed. And I hate to say such coarse things, but it's the facts. The progressive movement, although large and massive and numerous, is not powerful. It isn't strong. It isn't united. It's like having all of the peasants rise up against, the King of England in the 13th century, but nobody to lead them. Well, that's all well and dandy, but if all these peasants don't work together, all the king's horses and all the king's men will slaughter you. And that's what will happen. If the Democratic Party falls, we're going to get crushed by the GOP. And if we continue to not work together and work against each other or in spite of each other, we will continue to be irrelevant and weak. And that's where we are. Today, I'm, like you said, a lightning rod. Tomorrow, I could be an empty, steel rod in the middle of a field. So the question is, do we keep building forward? Do we keep pushing forward and coalescing, or do we keep trying to do our own thing? And I could be just as guilty of it. Do I want to be the hero of the progressive movement? Well, if I choose to take that walk and I don't empower people behind me, then I'm no better than Bernie Sanders. Not to say Bernie Sanders is bad. I'm saying during his primary, the second he stopped being the presidential candidate, the Bernie movement stopped and it fractured. And now we see the different progressive Bernie groups in New York City, California, Florida, blah, blah, blah. Instead of working together, they're working against each other, or rather they're working in parallel instead of coming together, because there was no unifying infrastructure. It was about the Bernie movement rather than the people's movement, regardless of the fact that that is exactly what Bernie Sanders himself said, which is why when I move forward, why I'm pushing forward is to be an empowering process for people. I don't care about being in charge. I don't care about being the leader. I care about creating the infrastructure we need to succeed. And I think that is what sets me apart in this movement. And I think that's why I can keep my foot in the door of the Democratic Party, still run and get their support, because they know that's who I am. But that's also why we still need to use the Democratic Party until either we can bludgeon them to death and take over, or get them to wake up and see the reality, and then we can start working together. One way or the other, we win, so long as we're working together.
So are you saying that you're considering definitely running for office within the Democratic Party?
Right. In the state of Ohio, there's no ballot access for independents or third parties. I found that out the hard way last year. So yes, I do want to run for office. I'm probably going to run for Congress. Possibly 2018, probably 2020, but maybe 2018, depending how quickly things go. And I will be running as a Democrat, even though it's a very gerrymandered district. I believe I can defeat Steve Chabot, who's the guy that I'd be running against, on my terms, on my turf, not as a Republican.
Okay. This question I'm hoping I know the answer to, but I'd like to ask it anyway. Would you change any of your policy positions based on your party affiliation?
No.
Okay.
I mean, I don't need to elaborate, right?
Fair enough. and that's, I think, something that people who are looking to follow you would be happy to hear. What is the trade-off, do you know, between running as a Democrat and running independently? What do you lose and what do you gain?
So what you lose, well, let me work on a different set of phrasing, please. If you run as an independent, you don't have party structure and everything is on your own tenacity. So if you're going to run as a Democrat, for instance, you at least know that there's going to be a structure that you can ask for some help. Maybe money, maybe just guidance, maybe mentorship. Hey, do you know who the guy is at the local news station? If you run as an independent, you don't have any of that. You're completely self-reliant, which isn't a problem in principle, but in reality, if you don't have a support structure, then you're doing it on your own. And I can attest to the fact that running for at a campaign completely by yourself is not easy. It's not even realistic, to be honest. I knocked on 20,000 doors in 5 weeks, and let me tell you something, that was not fun. And I didn't even hit my whole district, even though I had 5 weeks. You know what I'm saying? So to run for Congress, which is now two full counties, you can't do that by yourself. So if you're gonna run as an independent, you need a team, you need a structure. You stay at home, you get your parents, your friends, your family, your coworkers to help you. If you run as a Democrat, there should be an infrastructure. Now, the key word in that is should. There isn't one in rural America. That's regardless of my hometown, state, whatever, or anywhere else in the country. The Democratic Party does not exist in a non-urban environment. That is a fact. So for me, running for Congress, I'd essentially be running as an independent anyway. The only difference is I only need 50 signatures to get on the ballot as a Democrat versus several thousand to get on the ballot as an independent, which guess who bets those signatures? The Board of Elections, which is comprised of Republicans and Democrats. Do they want a threat from the outside? No, they do not, which is why third-party candidates were denied last year, Green and Libertarian parties. And I've heard horror stories of where independents, say an independent who ran for governor of a state, got the 60,000 signatures they needed. And they were vetted down to below the minimum 20,000 they needed, meaning they threw away 40,000 plus one signatures just to keep an independent from running. So what's the trade-off? Being able to fight and not being able to fight. It's unfortunate. I don't agree with it. I don't like it. But running as an independent is incredibly unrealistic today.
Do you think, though, that it might be easier in oh, sorry, I got some feedback. I don't know why that's happening. All right, I'm going to push on anyway. Do you think it might be easier to run independently in an urban area?
It might be just as difficult. The thing is, running independent doesn't have to mean not having a D or an R next to your name, and it might even be better to use that. Again, I'm an outsider. I'm an independent. I was completely not affiliated with the Democratic Party when I ran for DNC chair, and look what happened with just 3 weeks. Granted, had I had 3 months' time, this might be a whole different discussion. This might be a congratulatory interview on making it to DNC chair, right? So it's a matter of perspective. I personally, Samuel Ronan, just not the guy, not the DNC chair candidate, not running for Congress, just the guy. I see nothing wrong with somebody running as a Republican in a gerrymandered district because that is the only realistic way they can make it through the primary and onto the ballot. You're beating your head against the wall running as a Democrat in Warren County because it's an 80-20 split. So being an independent doesn't necessarily mean you have to have an I next to your name. It literally means you are an outsider. Play the game. If they want to make it between two parties, fine. Destroy them from within. Attack them from within. Join them and crush them at their own game. That's what I did. And arguably, I succeeded. I might not have been the DNC chair. I might not have gotten a single vote from the DNC. But what did I do? I drove the narrative. I made political heavyweights change the tune of their story. I did that in under 3 weeks. That's winning. That is proof that it can be done.
I would agree that you drove the narrative in terms of forcing them to address the issue of the election fraud. But I think that what's of concern then, since, as I said, if you're a grassroots candidate, you have to run grassroots. If you're progressive, you have to run grassroots, whether you're in or out of the Democratic Party. But being in the Democratic Party presents a challenge that I have yet to hear anyone address, which is how then can you defeat this corruption? How do you make it let me rephrase this. If you have to work within the Democratic Party because there's no path outside of the Democratic Party, what's the path inside the party? Because we've seen that the grassroots candidates are derailed, and there doesn't seem to be a way to break through that corruption. We've seen election after election, they just wipe them out, and they don't seem to be concerned about people leaving. So where's the path there?
There isn't. There is no path within the infrastructure of the Democratic Party as it currently stands. What I was talking about was you have to have the label. You have to have the 50 signatures in Ohio anyway. You have to have the D next to your name if you want to even have a chance of running, or an R for that matter. And this is the thing, as progressives, we have to admit a certain truth. We are powerless because we aren't united. The second we become united and truly have a discussion that breaches and spreads across the country and all up and down the levels of government, that is an entirely different discussion. That's the part that I'm trying to do. But until we get there, we have to be infiltrators. We either have to infiltrate the Republican Party as a dark horse candidate, or the Democrats as a dark horse candidate. And we've seen that, yes, you'll be attacked. Yes, you might be pushed out. But we have also seen success in that endeavor. And what people, I think, also don't realize is that we do have power. If we just actually exercised our right to vote, we would be in control of our government regardless of party affiliation. It's getting that message across. That's what I'm working towards now. I'd be having the same conversation with you if I'd become the DNC chairman, because I believe in empowering people and getting that conversation to happen again. We need a strong progressive movement. We need a strong Green Party, a strong Libertarian Party. We need these things so that it drives conversation. But to your point, within the Democratic Party, if you're going to run in an urban area, you are going to be destroyed. So if you're in a rural area running as a Democrat, you're going to be ignored because you have a D next to your name. So as progressives, or as independents who are wanting to actually have a chance of winning, you have to figure out and you have to understand, how much am I willing to put into this? How much support do I have? And can I infiltrate? If you can infiltrate with a support structure, you have a strong chance of winning. Again, if I had ran as a Republican with a veteran status background, young, the message resonates with people, because it really does. I mean, the Democratic platform really does resonate with conservative voters. You just have to speak their lingo. So a veteran speaking the lingo, running as a Republican, could have won. Absolutely could have won, wouldn't have been a question, but I would have still needed an infrastructure. The question that you need to ask is, can progressives win by themselves? And the answer is no. No matter what you do. So the question needs to be, how do we come together? And that is the question I'm trying to answer. Sorry. It's been a long weeks.
A long weeks.
We need to start coming together. To quote myself, we need to fight, right? We need to. We cannot keep running and tilting at windmills. We cannot keep doing our own thing. We cannot keep coming up with the next reinvention of the wheel. We need to set our egos aside. We need to stop putting our agendas first. And we need to be like, look, we need to start winning. And the only way we're going to do it is by together. So no matter how you run, what part of the country you run at, whether you put a D next to your name or an R next to your name to get on the ballot, is irrelevant. You need to start working together.
I would agree with that. I think that it's important for us to find common footing, because at the end of the day, we all want the same thing. It's just a matter of disagreeing about how to get there. And I think that's important to remember, because you see a lot of people attacking each other. I don't know that that's necessary.
Can I touch on that real quick? We're attacking each other. How much sense does that make? We're all progressives. We're all Americans, right? At the end of the day, I don't have to agree with the damn thing you say, but we have to work together because we're in the same boat. We are both the 99%, and I'll play devil's advocate. Laissez-faire guns. Everybody get a gun. You can go to your Walmart checkout for $20 for all I care, right? And you're all about, nope, get rid of the Second Amendment. Just because you say get rid of the Second Amendment and I say you can get it for $20 at the freaking Walmart doesn't mean we shouldn't be able to come together and have a conversation about it. And that's what we fail to realize. And for the record, I'm not saying guns should be $20 and you can get them at Walmart. I'm just saying, for such an extreme and controversial issue, we should still be able to talk. And the fact that we attack each other instead of talking about it undermines our own efforts. And we have to stop doing that as well.
Again, I agree with that. I think that this is an issue which has become really heated. And as I said, you're a lightning rod for it, because you're coming off of this this sort of crazy ride that you were just on, and people want to see where you're going next, and where they can follow you and if they can follow you. And personally for me, I see a big issue with the election fraud and the corruption. Being able to get progressive candidates in when we can't get rid of the candidates who are already there yet. And it's like I said, it's not a matter of not believing in the idea of taking back the Democratic Party, but the Democratic Party only has the power that it has because it has the voters. If the voters were to leave, then the power would be elsewhere with them. So if we could harness that power and put it somewhere else, I don't see a problem in doing that either. Obviously, both things are difficult. I think the corruption, though, in the party makes it a little more difficult to work within the party. That's just my take, though.
No, you're absolutely not wrong, and that's what fundamentally my whole thing is about. I don't care about the parties. In fact, if I could have it my way, I'd say get rid of them and just get elected based on your own merit, make it public elections. That way, it doesn't really matter who's already in charge, even if you're running for president. Okay, so you get your signatures. I mean, there has to be a minimum requirement, right? And the Constitution says 35 years old, natural born citizen, and that's it, right? So if we want to just keep it from every 35-year-old that's 35 and older born in this country, which is what, hundreds of millions of people? All right, that 5,000 signature requirement, cool. That can be completely on your own because it should, right? So you get your 5,000 signatures, you need at least 50 from each state or something, whatever, right? Boom, you turn that in. It doesn't need, it needs to be vetted, I guess, but you turn that in, and then you get to go on CNN and say your part. You get to go on Fox and MSNBC. That's how easy this should be. But instead, like you said, the corruption. And you know what? I know Democrats are going to be watching this and like, aha, he's not a team player. Well, I think I made that pretty damn clear that I'm willing to work with the party, but I'm not going to toe the line. I'm not going to be in the fold. I will gladly accept your assistance. I will definitely learn from you. I welcome your mentorship, but I'm going to do what is right. And if you can't tolerate that, then okay, fine. There's a big target on my forehead now. The issue is, as a party, fundamentally representing the constituents who vote for our people, we are ignoring. How do you expect to continue to exist if you're ignoring the reason you exist? Because, okay, let's just say all the CEOs and lobbyists, right? That's maybe several thousand people across the country. And maybe if we add on the second tier of leadership, tens of thousands of people across the country out of millions. That's not sustainable. I don't know.
Well, then one might say, and then after this we'll move on because I don't mean to debate you. It is supposed to be an interview. But then one might say that they're able to ignore the reason why they exist because people will continue to feed into the party and to vote for Democrats.
The sad thing is it's a failed assessment. People aren't afraid of Donald Trump. They just want to be represented and they don't get it. They just don't get it.